Well, I'm delighted to say we're joined now by Reform UK's Shadow Home Secretary Zia Yusuf, who is proposing a radical overhaul of immigration and policing policies today. But we're asking, are they actually achievable? Let's speak to him now. Zia Yusuf, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Morning. Let's start, shall we, with these visa freezes on Pakistan, Afghanistan, Syria, other countries too. How are these going to work, and how are we going to avoid a repeat of what we saw with the Rwanda scheme, where it was wrapped up in so many legal challenges?
Well, look, the first thing to say is this is the least that should be done, and it's data-driven. So Pakistan is right up at the top in terms of people claiming asylum here. Why? Not because they come across by small boats. They're not even in the top 20 nationalities that come by small boat. What they do is they come and then they overstay. That's not fair. It's un-British. It's totally unfair on the British people. And the Pakistani government has consistently refused to take people back. They don't even take their criminals. They haven't even taken the most egregious and despicable of the grooming gang members, which should be the very, very least that they should do. And it's not just Pakistan, obviously. There's a host of other countries we've announced today. And look, what we are saying is if we are going to continue to issue visas to people, which is a privilege, not a right, then the very least we should expect is that those countries reciprocate by taking back the people who are in our country illegally. We simply cannot afford it. As Home Secretary, if you vote for a reform government, my promise is this: we will secure our borders, stop the invasion, we'll deport every illegal migrant in the country. We will get our police focused on one thing and one thing only, which is detecting crime, investigating crime, and arresting criminals. No more painting police cars in pride flags or dancing in the streets. And by the way, that is what our brave police officers, the men and women who serve in our force, are desperately crying out for. We'll avert the Boris wave fiscal disaster that is looming, and we will protect British culture. One of the policies we're announcing today, and look, I'm not a Christian myself, but I know how important, regardless of what faith you are, whether you have a faith at all, the Christian heritage of this country is vitally important to a country's culture. A country without a culture is simply an economic zone. And so we will grant all churches in this country listed status and create a new use class to prevent them being turned into places of worship for any other faith. There'll be a lot more in my speech at 11 a.m., but that's the core message. We'll secure our borders, we'll deport those here illegally, and we will make our streets safe again.
OK, Zia, it's all very well and good saying that, but as Ellie said, there could well be a lot of legal challenges to some of the policies that you are proposing. And on the church's points, trying to stop them being converted into mosques and others, how big of an issue is that in the country? Because from our research this morning, we could only find a very, very tiny fraction of churches converted to mosques when hundreds have shut overall.
Every time your phone connects to public Wi-Fi, anyone nearby could snoop on what you're doing. Hackers can steal your information, passwords, photos, and bank details in just seconds. ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. ExpressVPN is so easy to use. With just one click of a button, you're protected. Streaming, banking, or shopping, you can switch between high-speed servers worldwide in seconds, and your connection never slows down. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free, all backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. Protect your online life today.
Yeah, well, look, the whole point of passing laws is you try to prevent things from happening before the situation has gotten totally out of control. And that's one of the things that we've thought about. So, look, you can find well over, it's around about 50 that we're firmly aware of. But I'm aware personally of many, many more that are going through planning stages. And I also want to address the point about legal challenges. You know, one of the interesting things that a government can actually do in this country is change the laws. And I know people might not necessarily appreciate or realize that, because we haven't had a government that has appreciated and understood that the parliament in this country is indeed sovereign. So here's what we're going to do. We will leave the ECHR immediately. I'll be outlining in my speech today many outrageous examples of where the rights of British victims, the rights of British victims' families have been subordinated and deprioritized. You cover them frequently on your channel. The rights of a convicted foreign rapist have been given primacy over the rights of British citizens and the right of British people to feel safe. Unacceptable. We'll derogate from every international treaty that would otherwise then be used to frustrate deportations. And we will ensure that we've taken back the pen and that UK Parliament is sovereign. That is all primary legislation that we're already working on. That's why we're making this case, by the way, to the British people years ahead of a general election, because we're not going to let people stand in our way. If the House of Lords tries to stand in our way when things are in our manifesto, which I hope they don't, I really don't, but I hope they don't. But we've got to assume, sadly, most of the House of Lords have never even wanted to leave the ECHR, let alone do everything else that is required to get this country back onto a solid footing. If we want to make this a prosperous and powerful country for our children, we have to have a border. We don't have a border. I mean, British borders have not meant anything for almost as long as we can remember. Almost 200,000 people have turned up on our beaches uninvited over the last 8 years. And then a lot of people in the media and on the left take issue with me using the word invasion, or have taken issue with the word invasion that Nigel has used. That is an accurate description of what has been happening, and we'll stop it.
You say you want to deport every single illegal immigrant from Britain. How are you going to do that?
So there's several components to it. The first step is a legislative component, as you have rightly pointed out. We go into that clear-eyed. So, number one, have to leave the ECHR, but that is not enough. We must also, as I said, derogate from a host of other international treaties on an emergency basis. Otherwise, those would then be used by activist judges and this industrial complex of lawyers that exist to frustrate our immigration system and stop this country having a border. Number two, we create an agency, we'll call it UK Deportation Command. That agency will have one task, one mission, and that is to identify, detain, deport illegal migrants. We'll rapidly build detention capacity in modular fashion, as has been successfully done in several other countries. So we'll ramp detention capacity up to 24,000 people, and then we will have charter flights going, and we'll have the RAF on standby should there be any mechanical issues with charter flights. Those flights, we're going to get to 5 flights a day. They will take off routinely. Those are the things that have to be done in order to solve this problem. And by the way, we haven't had a government since this problem has become an epidemic. Not a single government has come close to doing a single one of those things, which is, again, why we're making the case now, why we have a fully costed plan to do it. I mean, the good news with that plan in terms of cost, the cost to the British taxpayer, people watching this programme right now, is close to £8 billion just in terms of the government disclosures. That's just accommodation, a portion of border force, and some of the welfare payments. The real cost is going to be a multiple of that. So once we've completed our plan, this is going to save British taxpayers enormous amounts of money. And of course, it is just the right thing to do because it is unfair to British people. And by the way, legal migrants. I hear so many times from legal migrants. My inbox is full of people who played by the rules, who are absolutely furious about the situation on our border, and the fact, of course, those people who arrived on our beaches, more people than stormed the beaches on Normandy, by the way, on D-Day, by the way, have arrived over the last 8 years. The majority of them men, the majority of them fighting age men, many from countries with a record of not having Britain's interests at heart. And what happens? Those people are prioritized. They get hospitality, they get free hotel accommodation, free taxis, free activities, all the stuff you've covered on your channel. The only way we solve this problem is not by closing hotels and putting them in HMOs or then taking them out of HMOs and paying them to go and live with friends. The only and right thing to do is to deport them.
Zia, you want to renegotiate the Brexit withdrawal agreement to bar EU citizens with settled status from claiming benefits. What's in it for the EU? What would motivate them to renegotiate with you, particularly when there's lots of British expats, of course, living in EU countries?
Yeah, there are, but let's go through the numbers on that. So when that deal was struck, there were already 4 times as many EU nationals in our country claiming welfare than the other way around. That was when the deal was struck, which is why it was frankly such an appalling deal in the first place. I don't know what the Tories were thinking with that. And since then, the number of EU nationals in the UK claiming welfare, or specifically universal credit, because that's the only line of welfare really that you get any data on, has grown 7-fold. It's grown 7-fold. So, if you're a UK citizen in Spain, you get a British state pension, right, which is funded by British taxpayers, the people watching this program. So this country has been deeply unserious about this for a very, very long time. And the reason we have to do this, we don't do this lightly.
But how are you going to do this?
Universal credit has been £15 billion over the last 18 months. Well, it's obviously a whole host of tools at our disposal. We are an important trading partner to France. We're an important trading partner to Germany. And by the way, I want to say this too. It's that figure of £15 billion in universal credit payments to foreign nationals nationals over the last 18 months. Right, that is growing and has been growing rapidly. If you just extrapolate the growth rate over the last 3 years in that number, you're well north of £20 billion a year by 2029. So my question is this: how big does that need to get before we say enough? Does it need to get to 30 billion, 50 billion? That's already, that number would already be more than this country spends on policing. Full stop this year. It's unacceptable. We have to go and renegotiate that if we want to be a serious country.
And just very briefly, Zia, because we are being told we're out of time with you, but just on this leave to remain being scrapped, how would that affect families with settled status?
So it would not impact settled status. So EU settled status, it would not impact, just to be crystal clear. So there's a separation between people who have EU settled status. They would continue to have that, but their entitlement to UK welfare would change. Don't you think that's reasonable?
OK. Zia Yusuf, thank you very much for your time this morning on GB News Breakfast. He's Reform's Home Affairs spokesperson. He's making his first speech in that role in Dover at 11 o'clock this morning, and you can catch all of that on GB News. Thanks, Zia.